thank BIT Mesra because that is the campus where I learned about entrepreneurship, and that is the first time when I got all the basic learnings about how to start something. So it was in the year 2002 when I joined BIT Mesra, and so from 2002 to 2006 I did the engineering, electrical and electronics engineering. And in those days, obviously you guys are young and you will not probably remember, but it was not very common to have mobile phones. Not everybody had at that time in 2002. And also, we used to pay fees for incoming calls also. So that is why we used to use missed call more than real calls. And we didn't have any LAN in BIT Mesra at that time. So there was no internet easily available in our hostel rooms. So it was a different period. However, even then we tried to do whatever best we had at that time in terms of resources. And I did not even have a laptop, so or a desktop. So I had no way to do coding and stuff. Anyway, in first year there wasn't too much of coding related things at that time, and in Triple E it was not part of the curriculum also. So, but I was genuinely interested in learning how to code, and so I did study on my own. I didn't join any course or anything, but just on my own I bought a few books and started doing some basic work. And what happens generally is at the end of the first year, mostly people don't do much in terms of any internship and all, because companies don't hire. Nowadays you guys are all more aware, and you have more tools, and probably you guys are doing much more than what we used to do. But in our time, first year summer vacation, nobody did anything. I mean, people just enjoyed and partied. There was no work. Nobody really did any work. So so that was the usual thing. I don't know what is now, but first year in summer was just waste of time mainly. Like people didn't do anything. So I thought that I'll also be wasting the time only. There was no company that would hire first year. This fact which I just told you, that I didn't have a laptop. So I used to borrow desktop computers from some friends in my hostel, and I used to do coding at night when others were, sleeping. So that is how I used to learn. And then because I couldn't get any internship, and those things were not available also at that time. So I started designing websites for different companies, like smaller companies in Calcutta and in nearby areas. So they were like some of them were like travel agencies and some small businesses, etc. So in those days, you could get 5-10,000 rupees for doing one website, and it wasn't a lot of money, but still it was not bad, because the other option was getting nothing. So I started building those websites, and started making little bit of money every time I made a website. I did my own sales, marketing, coding, everything. Only one person was there. Okay. So after doing that, over a period of around 2 months of the summer vacation, I think, I don't remember exactly, but I think it was 36,000 or 40,000, something like that. I was able to generate as profit. And that is what I think Vishal sir was mentioning related to internal motivation. Neither my parents told me to do anything, nor any of my friends or nobody, no professor told me to do anything. It was because I wanted to buy my own laptop, so I wanted to do this. And my father had told me he will not buy it for me. So he didn't. He said that you are in electrical electronics. Why do you need laptop and all that? Then so he said he will not buy a laptop. So I had to earn my own laptop. That was my motivation. And then at the end of the 2 months, I earned my laptop by making websites. Okay, so that was very useful to me. And then I realized the power of entrepreneurship. I was not dependent on anybody. I didn't want to from someone else. I did it on my own. And then that is the time where I really understood that if a first year BIT Mesra student with no real formal education in that particular segment, which is the website designing related coding, if he can earn 30-40,000 rupees in 2 months, then that's quite good. I mean, I may not need to do a job also if I can consistently do this. So that's the first trigger, okay, that came in my mind at that point. And then what happened was I was also very active with all these different clubs at BIT Mesra, and organizing a lot of events. And also those were good experiences. They taught me how to manage people, how to lead teams, how to motivate people. So it was a very, very good experience at BIT. And one thing that I regret is that while I was doing this website designing business, I also started collating menu cards of different restaurants in Calcutta. So I started with Domino's Calcutta. And what I used to do was I used to go to them, get the menu card, then put it on the website and put the pricing and all. Because at that time in 2002, 2003, it's long time back and almost 20 years ago, there was no payment gateway. So people didn't order online. There was no concept of ordering online or payments online. But only use case or why I wanted to create that was just to for people to see the menu card and see the pricing. So they could see the pricing. Okay, this particular pizza is costing this much, and you can add a few things, and then the total price will be this, and hence they can call an order. Order would be, by a call, but they will at least know what they are ordering. Otherwise, we didn't have Swiggy and all those things at that time, so we couldn't see the menu. Okay, so that is the problem.
Sir, your voice are cracking.
Sorry, I get these things keep coming, so I left it. Hello, can
Yeah,
you
sir,
hear?
please continue. Please continue. There was a network glitch in the
Yeah,
Please
yeah.
continue.
Okay, so because of the exams and all the projects, everything that we have as part of the engineering curriculum, and also I came back to Ranchi and I was not in Calcutta. So slowly I left that particular project and I didn't continue. Now, if you see the Zomato IPO, which I was referring to, is exactly that. It's actually, if I had obviously if I had continued doing it for so long, then it would have definitely grown, but I didn't. So that was one opportunity which later on I realized, but then that was too late. I was focusing on the traditional things of completing the degree and getting a job and all that. So I didn't go to the non-traditional route of starting something from straight out of college. Okay, by the time I realized that opportunity was gone, obviously new opportunities could come. Now, why I am telling you this particular opportunities, because this also keeps happening. Many times we get a lot of good ideas, but we don't execute. Somebody else that does that, and then we say, "Arey, humko bhi pata tha, ye to kar sakte the," and then you regret. So there is no point in regretting. You have to execute, and there is no value in having ideas. Ideas don't matter. It is all about execution. And many times think that I don't have that resources to do something, because it's a big idea. How will I manage? Where will the money come from, etc. But those things fall in place. None of these entrepreneurs, when they started, they had everything in place. Everything, once you start, you slowly get all the resources, and if you're doing the right thing, then people come and help you also. So LinkedIn's founder Reid Hoffman, he says that entrepreneurs jump off a cliff and build parachutes on their way down. So they jump off the cliff first, and then they build the parachutes on their way down. And that's what even my experience has been in every initiative. First I start, and then after a few days I realize, okay, a lot of things I have to do, and then slowly I have to get those resources. Okay. And similarly, what happens is we always aspire to do a lot of things, but we will have limited resources. It's almost like, I want to go to Mars, but I only have a bicycle. So that is that is a situation of an entrepreneur when he starts. Slowly he has to gather those resources. And if most of you have not experienced the corporate world, so you will probably not relate to what happens in a corporate job and why entrepreneurship. That particular story or that particular segment probably after a few years I can tell you again when you are doing a job, because right now you will not understand what is office politics, what is what is bureaucracy in a big company, how ideas don't take off in big companies, and how startups can move much faster. So those things are also reasons which will motivate many of you to start up in a later stage of your life. And see, when it comes to pursuing your startup dream, trying and failing is better than not trying, because in the second case of not trying, failure is guaranteed. I guess you understood what I. Okay, so one is to fail after trying, the other is not try and just fail by default. And when you try, you get a lot of good experience. that experience itself will help you, next time you do something. So my advice to everybody is always that you keep trying and keep doing something new. Eventually, something good will work out. So that's how, the journey started. Then after my engineering, I worked for 2 years, and after that I went to Boston University in USA, and because I wanted to do my startup post MBA. Many people write their essays and SOPs for GMAT, GRE purposes, saying that they want to do X and Y. But whatever I have written in my SOP in 2008, I'm actually following and I am pursuing the same SOP. I have not changed the statement of purpose. So it's not like opportunistically, okay, abhi ye nahi chala to kuch aur kar lete wala. I have not done that. I have stuck to it. It may be good or bad, but I'm just giving you that perspective, because if you plan long term, then you can execute also. Otherwise, if you keep changing, then it becomes difficult. The focus loses. And so just an example is, suppose you're booking a cab using Ola or Uber. Now, if you just book the cab, it's like you press that book now button. The car will come, then you will sit in the car, but you don't know where to go. There is no destination. You'll keep going round and round. And going round and round is not progress. You are moving, but you're not progressing. Okay. So, and this is very important, not just for entrepreneurship, it's very general advice to all the youngsters here. Many times they ask, whether we should do A or B or C. There are many career options, and then many companies, within those companies, different roles. What should I do? What should I do? That's a common question which we keep getting from students. So my answer to that is that nobody else can answer that. Your path. Nobody else can tell you that this is the right path for you. You have to first tell yourself what is your destination. If you know your destination, you will figure out your path. Okay. So my destination as such, around the 2005-6 period, when I was at BIT Mesra only, was very clear that I wanted to at certain point in time start my own company. But I didn't have that much of confidence at that just after engineering, that whether I will know all the aspects of business or not. Then so I thought I'll do an MBA, and I wanted to do it outside India to get a global perspective. So that's why I didn't take any CAT exam or anything. And so I didn't want to confuse myself. If I confuse myself, and if I have decided I want to go outside India, then I will not take any Indian exam, because luckily, unluckily, if I qualify, then again I'll get confused. And then again, my entire plan will go haywire. I'll do whatever comes. That also happens in the campus placement. Companies keep coming in a particular order, and whichever you get, your career and everything then gets defined by that. Rather than things happening by chance, as much as possible, we can also drive our own life. Okay. So then the next thing was that US MBA, etc., was very costly. And if you have to do a startup, then if you have so much of education loan and all that, then it becomes very difficult to start. So my calculation was that if I have to start, then I have to have minimum education loan. So I have to have maximum scholarship. So with that calculation, I did some applications and all that, and then I got around 90% scholarship at Boston University. So my education cost was very, very low. And then my next target was that if I have to start because of visa issues and all, you cannot start in USA. USA, you can do a job. You cannot do your own startup over there right now because of H1B visa and all. So that was also very clear that the startup has to be in India. Now, if startup has to be in India and I have to come back, and I have to have, decent financial situation to manage that. So these are all, calculations that are practical. If theoretically, if I just dream that I want to start something and no practical steps are taken, it will not happen. So then every month I started working in US so that I could fund my living costs, etc. So that when I came back to India, I almost had no loan. Like even after completing a dual degree, I did a MS in information systems and MBA in finance, but it didn't cost me anything significant. So then I worked for a few years to get industry experience, and I also tried to get experience in the field where I want to finally do a business in. So what I did was I navigated the career in such a way that I got experience of managing money, which is the business which I eventually wanted to do. So if I didn't do that job, then I wouldn't get that relevant industry contact. As you know, during my introduction, you were mentioning that I had managed around 12,000 crore rupees plus. So that is a huge amount of money, and it was Tata's money, obviously the company's money plus employees' money, provident fund, gratuity. These are like retirement funds, so you have to manage them carefully. And when you manage such a huge amount of capital, like crores of rupees, there were days when on a single transaction, like thousands of crores of rupees of investment, I have to take a decision. So this is obviously very complicated and good experience. I cannot get that experience elsewhere, like in a another smaller setting. Only in a big company setting I could get that experience. And also because of that, I could connect to all the mutual fund CEOs, all the industry leaders, because of my position in Tata. Because as an individual, if I go, they wouldn't have given me any time. But because I was in Tata, I was having so much money to invest, so they used to come and meet me. So that was very good. So now I got all this network in the industry because of that. And now when I am doing my startup, I have already connected with them. So that base was from that job. And but if I had done a very different job, nothing to do with this, maybe I wouldn't have got those relevant contacts. So after that, I decided that I'll quit my job, and fintech was something which at that time, around 2015-16, it was not so much known. But I had traveled to US, and I had attended some meetings and events in New York, and there I saw to rapidly grow. And that is where I kind of got interested in this field, and I came back and started planning how to the wealth management space. Also, that was the time when a lot of such innovative things were happening in the West. So another thing which if it is possible for you, then if you can travel and meet people, it really helps. It opens your mind. It gives you a lot of new ideas. And so that's why I've been traveling a lot to US, Europe, etc. Obviously after Corona everything has stopped, but prior to that I used to travel, and it used to be very, very useful, because only when you go and meet people and listen to them, you get a lot of ideas. I had met so even there I have some regret stories. I had met someone who was selling me Bitcoin in 2015, and I wanted to buy, but for some technical reason we couldn't do the transaction. Otherwise, that would have been also a good investment for me. Then I had met the founder of Ethereum also, very many years ago, and we had a very good discussion, etc. So whenever I have met some people who were ahead of their time, from them you could learn a lot of things. Many times you don't know how things will pan out, how something small will suddenly grow into something big. And that's a huge learning that I have got in the last several years. So when I had to start my venture, there were certain problems, because I am from a traditional Bengali family, and in Bengali family, if you have a job in the Tata Group, and especially if you are in a good place like Mumbai, they had given me a nice 3 BHK apartment near Marine Drive. It was one of the best locations possible. So after all those things, if you tell your parents that you want to quit your job, then they say ki beta pagla ho gaya hai or something like that. I mean, they don't appreciate it in India. Okay, and especially if you are married, then you have a extended in-laws also. You have entire society thinking that something has gone wrong with you, or something has gone wrong in your company. You're not telling them. Okay, nobody really understood the passion of an entrepreneur. Okay, but anyway, now after several years, they are now happy that I have done that. But at that time, nobody supported. Okay, so that's why you have to have more conviction than your parents and other people. Otherwise, they'll keep telling you not to do it. Okay, so your conviction has to be more than theirs. And there also another constraint, or another, not constraint exactly, but another issue was that I had a baby boy at that time. He was just 6 months old. So with all those kind of risks, it becomes very difficult to leave a stable job, and where generally Tata doesn't even lay off anybody, so it was very stable. And after leaving that, you're going into something uncertain where your cash flows, your salary, nothing is guaranteed. Okay, and so the way I would see the trade-off, or the way I would analyze the risk, because that is where most people stop. Uh, like 99% of people will stop there, and that's what I've seen with my friends also, who have a stable job and then they decide to do something, but then at some point they just say, no, I think this is becoming risky. Okay, and they don't do it. So uh, there you have to analyze the risk in a different way. Your framework of risk has to change. So normally in India, we have never been taught to take risk. In some colleges and in some books, there is a word called risk management, but I'm not talking about risk management. I'm basically talking about risk taking. Risk taking should be one of the most important subjects we should be taught in every college. Okay, along with a subject called money. These are the two important subjects which are not taught: money and risk taking. Okay, uh, and that's where a lot of people lose out in the real life. GPA, VPA, ठीक है, those things are fine for some time. After that, nobody asks about what is your GPA, what is your certificate. मेरा certificate आज तक कोई किसी का चीज़ का नहीं देखा है. So anyway, certificate is not important. What is important is your own knowledge about how to manage money and how to take risks. When you have to take risks, you have to take risks in a way that your downside is protected as much as possible, and upside are unlimited. That's called a option payoff. It's a slightly technical thing, but the way you have to understand it is that you take some bet where if the bet goes right, then you can make a lot of money, or you can do a lot of good things. You can be really successful. So the bet is that you put you buy a lottery ticket. When the bet goes right, there's a lot of upside. If the bet goes wrong, then you try to limit your downside. That you shouldn't एकदम get impoverished type का. You shouldn't have that sort of a bet, but you should get little bit of money is lost, little bit of time is lost. That's fine. So you have to downside को protect करके you have to maximize the upside. That when you learn, that is risk taking. Okay, so for most people who are coming from a good college like BIT Mesra, if you have the relevant skills, and basically if you have if you know at least something in technical or something, which where you are quite confident that you will get a basic level of job anyways. Okay, then you know that in the worst case you will again go back to another job. Okay, so what you will lose, suppose you give yourself 1 year or 2 year of time, and for financial struggle probably, but if things work out, then you will not even have that struggle. If things don't work out, then okay, that's fine. You will get a good experience and you will probably return to a job. So you have to analyze the risks in such a way that that nothing nothing very drastic is going to happen. It is not that you will die. Okay, it is not something which will cause an irreparable damage. You should not do anything which will cause a risk of ruin. So there is a concept called risk of ruin and a risk of volatility. Wherever there is a risk of volatility means that something will go up or down. Even if you buy a share in the stock market, or something will go up and down, that's fine. As long as you know that what you have bought is good, in the long run it will go up, that is fine. In the short run, it doesn't matter. So risk of volatility is something which you should take. You should actively take such risks, because volatility gives a lot of good opportunities. When things are down, you should actually take it. And risk of ruin is where you do something which will permanently create a big problem. That sort of risk should not be taken. So you should not go and jump from a 20 feet building. I'm not saying do that, but if if you have to stress yourself in a gym and work out for 2 hours, even if it is causes some stress, that is fine. Some stress is always good. Okay, very comfortable life is also not good. So some, that is where the internal motivations will also come when you have some problems. So if you can get this right risk framework in your mind, then you will be able to take that step. Otherwise, even after getting a lot of gyan on entrepreneurship and all the startup books and all quotation, YouTube में video देखते रह जाओगे, सब होगा, finally you will not do anything. Okay. Finally, if you want to do anything, then your risk framework has to be right. Okay. And the other thing which I mentioned, which is about money, that's also very important, because startups don't close down because of debt related bankruptcy. Basically, something like Kingfisher situation, when Kingfisher goes bankrupt because they have taken too much of loan, they can't repay the loan, and hence Kingfisher goes bankrupt. Startups don't get loans only, so there is no question of getting bankrupt because of loans and stuff like that. So startups close down, and 90% plus will close down because they run out of money, they run out of cash. Okay. So that is where cash flow management is the most important skill that an entrepreneur needs to know. And that is something which I have seen even very senior people, like, who have maybe some finance background also, but still not everybody understands this. Okay. This cash flow management, which I just mentioned, and hence they are sometimes, not able to manage their company properly, and they are very, very close to shutting it down, or sometimes they are not able to, stop that from happening. So that's why cash flow management is very important, where you have to know how much money is coming in, how much money is going out, how you are managing this money. If you have raised external capital, then how much, at what valuation you have raised, what capital, how long will it last, and you should not also, give away too much of your shareholding, but also, raise enough so that you can, keep going on for a long period of time. So those calculations need to be done. It cannot be an emotional decision, or it cannot be a, hasty decision. These are things which will impact your own life, for a long period of time. So I think people who, take risks are respected by the society, because without taking risks, there is no progress. And entrepreneurs take risks to solve problems that benefit the customers and create jobs. If you want to create jobs, if you want to be an entrepreneur, every day you have to take some risk. That is why the risk-taking course and the money-related course, those are the two courses which I want every college to start. None of them have started yet, but hopefully at least maybe BIT Mesra can start these two courses. Okay. And yeah, I think, we can take a few questions, and then maybe people can give some feedback and we'll discuss.
Yeah, sure, sir, sure. So basically, many people have texted me, they want to know more about your start, the Cashrich start,
Okay.
particular bullet points of Cashrich's start. So people are eager to know about that, sir.
Sure. So I'll just tell you, like, why or how the thing was started, how the company was started. So in 2011, my father retired from his job, and he got all this, provident fund, gratuity, money, etc. And somehow in India, I have observed that fathers don't share their financial stuff with their sons or daughters. Okay, the family has no clue what the father is doing, and the father thinks he is doing the right thing. Hopefully, he is. In my case, he was not. He was doing all the traditional FD, LIC, insurance, and all these things, post office investment, etc. So I was very shocked that my father is not listening to me, and he is only doing what the bank people are telling him. Plus, I was trying to convince him that, I know something. I have done this MBA from Boston. I have a CFA charter holder. I am managing so much money for Tata Group. Ratan Tata is trusting. You're not trusting. Anyway, so after this conversation, he said, okay, take 1-2 lakhs, do something. Okay. So that is how I saw the first-hand problem. That the problem was that most middle class India is financially illiterate. That's a fact. Okay. And again, that's the saying the money related course is very important. Now, if people are not aware financially what is the right thing to do, then what happens next is all these LIC uncles and bank relationship managers, they come in, they sell some shitty products, they sell ULIPs, etc. They sell things which are not good for the individual. Like I'm sure if you go back to your parents or discuss this money related thing today, you will come to know your parents must have made the same mistakes. Okay, most of them, like 99%, 1% is aware and probably have avoided all these things. So what happens net of because of these mistakes is that your money grows at a rate like much lower than inflation. Suppose price of everything is going up at 10% and your money is growing at only 5%, then that means that your money from 100 it has gone to 105, but everything has gone from 100 to 110. So you are becoming poorer every year, and that's a very basic concept of inflation and how the which time value of money, etc. And but somehow middle class India doesn't consider inflation. They're just happy with the return that they get from FD. Okay, FD mein itna aa gaya, sometimes they're in the 30% tax bracket, so they lose money in paying in the tax on this interest, etc. And net it is a inefficient way of managing money. So I started telling my father what is the right way to do, and slowly moving his money to the right things. And when he saw some benefit after 2, 3, 4 years, then he started giving me more money to invest. And now I have been able to completely move his money out of the inefficient things to the efficient things. And so that is, one problem statement which I saw. Second thing was whenever my friends and family members, they walked into any bank, they were fooled and given some wrong products by the bank relationship managers. And what happened was, when I took my father to the ICICI Bank in Calcutta near my home, and I was there with him, and I told the bank guy that okay, I need these particular investment products. So he constantly tried to deviate us by saying, this is not good, that is good, etc. I said, I know what I'm talking about. You give me what I want. Finally, he didn't. Finally, he told me that if I give you what you want, then my bank manager will scold me, or I will be, I have been asked not to sell these good things. Actually, when he didn't say good, he said these things we can't sell. So I thought that what is the logic? Why is he saying this? Then I came back to Mumbai. I did my own research, and I found that all the good products, financial products, whenever I'm talking about products, these are once all of you graduate and go for a job, all of you will earn money, and that is why you are doing all this education, certification, everything is at the end for salary. And at the end of getting salary, you will put the money in the same FD, you will start losing money. You will not understand how you are losing money. Okay. And then after another 10-15 years, you will realize, okay, you have made some mistakes. So try to avoid those money mistakes. Anyway, so when whatever is a good financial product, that product by default will have less commission or less inbuilt remuneration for the seller. Okay. And whatever is a bad product by design, that will have very good remuneration for the seller, which is mostly the LIC uncle and the banks. Okay. So if you can avoid the LIC uncles and the banks, that itself is a very good financial education that you can have. Okay. And the second, thing what happens is, so by default, we have to, these banks have to sell you bad products because their cost of operations is very high. They have all these, bank branches across India. Usme, so many people are working, AC chal raha hai, rent hai, there's a lot of cost. If you have to make that financially sustainable, then the equations are such that they cannot do something good for their customer, they will go out of business. That is simple. Okay. So to stay in business, how do we change the situation? The only way to change the situation was that we start something like Cashrich, where I don't have any branch. I don't have any, too many like sales people running around collecting paper, doing Xerox and all that. And every transaction is digital. Now, when every transaction becomes digital, then for me to do a very small 100 rupee investment transaction, okay, somebody is just putting 100 rupees. When he does that 100 rupee transaction, we get nothing. In fact, we have our own payment gateway charges, other charges. We are probably losing on that transaction. Okay. However, in a long run, it's fine because he'll also transact again. And but still the marginal cost is nearly zero because these are only database entries, right? Will go to your house, vehicle, go to your house, collect a check, come back. There's a lot of cost. So for him to survive, he has to sell you something which will earn more than that. And that is where the problem is. So if the transactions, all investment transactions become digital, then we are able to provide the best products which are really good for the customer. And eventually people will understand, you can fool someone once, but repeatedly you cannot fool. Okay, so if you want to build something long term, then you have to give the good things. And also in online world, everything is transparent. People can Google everything. So you can't do what the local agent can do. So that is where we thought we will position our offering in a way which will be transparent, which will be easy to use, and which will give the right product and right kind of a financial guidance. Because there are like we are focusing currently mostly on mutual funds. We have some insurance products also, but whatever mutual funds we have, we do our own in-house research to find what is good for the customer, and then accordingly do that. And there are many other steps that we do, like research, etc. we do in the background. Otherwise there are like almost 6,000 plus such options, investment options. For any person who's not into this field, for him to do that research and find what is right and what is wrong is very difficult. So that is the problem we solved, and I saw this problem in my family. That's why it started. So that is to answer the how Cashreach started as an idea.